Hey everyone, welcome back to Speak Up. If this is your first time here, I'm Ryan, and joining me as always is Priya. We're here to help you learn English fast, improve your English fluency, and gain the confidence to speak naturally. A big shout out to our returning listeners. We truly appreciate your support.
Yes, and if you're new, you've picked the perfect episode to start with. Today, we're talking about one of the most effective ways to improve English listening practice and speak English confidently, and that's through podcasts. But here's something interesting. Simply listening to podcasts isn't enough. You need the right approach to get real results. So, in this episode, we're going to show you exactly how to use podcast conversations to upgrade your English skills, step by step.
Podcasts have completely changed the way people learn English, and for a good reason. Unlike traditional methods like textbooks or grammar drills, podcasts expose you to real-life English conversations, which is exactly how native speakers communicate. Think about it. When you were a child, you didn't learn your first language by memorizing rules. You picked it up by listening to people talk. That's why English listening practice is so powerful. It helps you absorb natural sentence structures, pronunciation, and even the rhythm of the language without feeling like you're studying. The best part? You don't need a classroom, a tutor, or a strict schedule. You can learn English at home while commuting or even while doing daily chores. Podcasts give you flexibility, making learning easier and more effective.
Exactly, Ryan. And here's another key benefit. When you listen to podcasts regularly, your brain starts adapting to the language naturally. Instead of translating words in your head, you begin to think in English, which is a huge step toward fluency. But here's what many learners don't realize. Podcasts don't just help you understand English, they also improve your speaking skills. By listening to natural conversations, you pick up on English pronunciation tips, common phrases, and English idioms that native speakers use every day. It's like having an English-speaking environment around you, even if you don't live in an English-speaking country. In this episode, we'll break down exactly how to use podcasts effectively, how to expand your vocabulary, improve your pronunciation, and even practice English conversation alone. So if you've ever felt stuck in your learning journey, stay with us because we have some powerful techniques coming up.
Let's first talk about how podcast conversations improve English fluency. Imagine this. Every day, you tune into a podcast and immerse yourself in daily English conversations. Over time, your brain starts to recognize and absorb natural speech patterns instead of forcing you to translate every sentence from your native language. It's like training your mind to think in English automatically. When you listen consistently, you're not just hearing words. You're internalizing rhythms, intonations, and even subtle pronunciation tips that native speakers use. This constant exposure makes it easier for you to pick up on natural expressions and everyday idioms, which are essential for speaking fluently. The beauty of podcasts is that they expose you to various accents and speaking styles, ensuring that you not only understand a single dialect, but also become adaptable to different ways English is spoken worldwide. This method is a powerful, enjoyable way to learn English fast without the pressure of a classroom.
Exactly, Ryan. When you listen to real-life conversations through podcasts, you're essentially practicing English listening practice on the go. Each episode is like a mini lesson that helps you bridge the gap between textbook English and how people actually speak. The daily exposure trains your brain to process language in real time, reducing the need for translation in your head. It's similar to how children learn languages naturally by listening and imitating. You begin to notice patterns in sentence construction, intonation, and vocabulary that textbooks might overlook. Additionally, podcasts offer a mix of formal and informal language, so you learn both English pronunciation tips and casual expressions that make your conversations more authentic. This approach not only builds your listening skills but also boosts your confidence, so you can start speaking English confidently without overthinking every word.
Building on that, the regular practice of listening to podcasts does wonders for your overall speech clarity. When you hear native speakers discussing various topics, you're exposed to a wide range of vocabulary and real-life English expressions that aren't always found in structured lessons. This helps you get a feel for how sentences flow naturally and how to adjust your tone based on context. Moreover, The diversity in accents, be it American, British, or even regional variations, enhances your ability to understand different speakers, making you more adaptable in real-world situations. It's like having a mini immersion experience wherever you are, which is incredibly beneficial for mastering English fluency. Podcasts create an environment where you can learn at your own pace, pause, and replay parts you find challenging, and gradually build up your language skills. Over time, this continuous exposure helps transform your learning from a conscious effort to an almost subconscious process.
Absolutely, Ryan. One of the key advantages of using podcasts for language learning is that it simulates a real conversational environment. You get to hear how native speakers handle everyday situations, from casual chit-chat to more structured discussions, which in turn helps you develop an ear for nuance and context. This method is particularly effective for learners aiming to understand native English speakers without getting lost in translation. As you listen more, you begin to catch subtle pronunciation details and intonation patterns that are crucial for clear communication. Plus, podcasts often introduce you to a wide array of topics, enriching your vocabulary and making it easier to adopt phrases that are both useful and contemporary. The regular exposure to various accents and styles also ensures that you're not limited to one version of English, but are well prepared for different speaking contexts. It's a fun, immersive way to build your skills and gain the confidence to join any conversation effortlessly.
Now, let's talk about the best way to listen to podcasts for maximum learning. One of the biggest mistakes English learners make is listening to podcasts passively without actually processing the language. They just play an episode in the background while doing something else, hoping they'll absorb the words naturally. While this might help a little, it's not enough if you truly want to improve your English. The key is to train yourself to stop translating in your head and start thinking in English directly. This happens when you focus on understanding the meaning of phrases as a whole, rather than breaking them down word by word. For example, if you hear the phrase, "let's catch up soon," instead of translating it into your native language, recognize it as a natural way of saying, "let's meet and talk soon." This shift in mindset takes time, but podcasts provide the perfect opportunity to practice this skill. And the best part? The more you do it, the easier it gets.
That's such an important point, Ryan. And to build on that, let's talk about the difference between active and passive listening. Both are useful, but they serve different purposes. Passive listening is when you play a podcast while commuting, exercising, or doing chores. It's a great way to expose yourself to the rhythm and sound of English, even if you're not fully focused on every word. But for real improvement, you need to switch to active listening. This means paying close attention to how sentences are structured, noticing pronunciation, and even pausing to repeat key phrases. A great technique is the shadowing technique for fluency, where you listen to a sentence and immediately try to repeat it in the same tone and speed as the speaker. This helps with English pronunciation tips and makes your speech sound more natural. So instead of just hearing words, you're actually training your brain to think in English and speak with confidence.
Exactly, Priya. And to make the most of your listening practice, you should follow a structured routine. Here's a simple yet powerful method. First, choose a podcast episode that matches your level, something challenging but not too difficult. Second, listen to the episode once without stopping, just to get the overall meaning. Then, listen again, but this time, pause after key sentences and repeat them out loud. This technique helps with both English pronunciation training and fluency. Another great tip is to take notes while listening. Write down new words or phrases and later try using them in your own sentences. You can even categorize these words based on topics, like business English vocabulary or common English phrases. By doing this consistently, you'll start noticing real improvements in your vocabulary and speaking skills.
That's a fantastic approach, Ryan. And another thing that can help is setting specific goals for each listening session. For example, focus on just one aspect at a time. One day, pay attention to intonation and pronunciation. Another day, try to catch idioms and phrases. And on another, concentrate on understanding native English speakers. Breaking it down like this makes learning more manageable and keeps you motivated. Also, don't be afraid to replay sections multiple times. Native speakers naturally speak fast, and it takes time to get used to their pace. And if you struggle with a particular word or phrase, use online tools or best apps to learn English to hear how it's pronounced. The key is consistency. By following these strategies daily, you'll develop strong listening habits that will make a noticeable difference in your English fluency.
Now, let's talk about one of the most powerful techniques for improving your speaking skills, the shadowing technique for fluency. This method is simple but incredibly effective. It involves listening to English conversations and immediately repeating what you hear, almost like an echo. The goal is to mimic the pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm of native speakers. This technique works because it forces your brain to think in English and helps you develop English pronunciation tips naturally. The best part? You don't need a conversation partner to practice. You can do it alone with a podcast. Imagine listening to a podcast episode where two people are discussing a topic. You hear a sentence like, "I totally agree with you on that," and without pausing the audio, you immediately repeat it in the same way, trying to match the speaker's tone and speed. This process trains your mouth muscles to produce English sounds correctly and boosts your English conversation practice.
That's so true, Ryan. One of the biggest challenges for English learners is overcoming fear of speaking English and reducing hesitation. Many people feel nervous because they're unsure of their pronunciation or they think too much before speaking. But the shadowing technique helps you overcome these fears by making speaking a natural habit. When you repeat sentences out loud, your tongue gets used to forming English sounds and your brain processes the language faster. Over time, you'll notice that you're able to speak English confidently without overthinking. Another great benefit of shadowing is that it helps with understanding native English speakers. Since you're training your ears to catch the rhythm and stress patterns of real speech, you'll find it easier to follow conversations in real life. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. The goal isn't perfection. It's about getting comfortable with speaking naturally.
Exactly, Priya. And here's a simple exercise to get started. First, choose a short podcast clip, about 30 seconds to 1 minute long. Play it once and just listen carefully. Then, play it again, but this time, try repeating the sentences as soon as you hear them. If it's too fast, slow down the playback speed. You can even pause after each sentence, repeat it, and then play the next one. This method helps you learn English fast by directly copying natural speech. For example, if you hear a sentence like, "Let's grab a coffee and talk about it," don't just understand the meaning, say it out loud exactly as the speaker does. This builds muscle memory and makes speaking feel effortless. And for those who want to improve even further, combine this with English listening exercises. Listen to the same episode multiple times until you can shadow it smoothly without struggling.
That's a fantastic way to practice, Ryan. And for listeners who want an extra challenge, try recording yourself while shadowing. Play back your recording and compare it with the original podcast audio. This will help you notice which words you need to work on and how close you are to sounding natural. Another great tip is to practice shadowing with different types of conversations, casual talks, interviews, or even business English vocabulary discussions. This will help you become familiar with various speaking styles. And don't forget, shadowing works best when done regularly. Even just 10 minutes a day can make a big difference. So if you want to speak English without hesitation and sound more like a native speaker, start using the shadowing technique today.
Let's now talk about an essential part of learning English, expanding your vocabulary with podcast conversations. One of the biggest challenges English learners face is remembering new words and using them naturally in conversations. That's where podcasts become a powerful English vocabulary builder. Instead of memorizing long word lists, you learn new words in context, meaning you hear them being used naturally in real conversations. This makes them easier to remember and apply. Think about it. If you hear the word versatile in a sentence like, "This tool is really versatile," you can use it for many different tasks. You automatically understand its meaning based on the conversation. This is far more effective than just reading the definition in a dictionary. And the best part? You're also learning pronunciation and sentence structure at the same time.
Exactly, Ryan. Contextual learning is so powerful because it helps words stick in your memory without forceful memorization. But to make sure these words become a part of your daily English conversation, you need to take an active approach. One great technique is keeping a vocabulary notebook. While listening to a podcast, write down new words along with the sentence they were used in. Then, instead of just memorizing them, try using them in your own sentences. For example, if you hear the word spontaneous in a sentence like, "She made a spontaneous decision to travel," don't just note the word. Create your own example like, "I made a spontaneous plan to meet my friend yesterday." This method strengthens your ability to use new words naturally. Another great tip is using these words in English conversation practice alone. Try forming sentences aloud or writing short paragraphs with them.
That's a great strategy, Priya. Another effective way to memorize English words naturally from podcasts is to repeat and review them in different situations. Let's say you learned 5 new words from a podcast today. Use each one at least 3 times throughout your day. Maybe you can use one while chatting with a friend, another in a social media post, and one while writing an email. The more you use them, the faster they become a natural part of your vocabulary. Also, try categorizing words by topic. If you're listening to a business-related podcast, note down business English vocabulary words separately. If it's a travel-related podcast, list down words related to travel. This helps your brain organize new words more effectively. And don't forget, listening to the same podcast multiple times can reinforce learning. Each time you listen, you'll pick up something new, whether it's a new word, phrase, or even an improved understanding of pronunciation.
That's such a smart approach, Ryan. And here's another fun way to expand vocabulary, learning with stories. Some podcasts feature storytelling, and stories are an amazing way to learn new words because they engage emotions, making words easier to remember. If you hear a story about a detective solving a mystery, you might pick up words like clue, suspect, or investigate. Because you're hearing them in an engaging way, they stick in your memory effortlessly. Another useful method is the shadowing technique for fluency. When you repeat podcast dialogues out loud, you're not just improving pronunciation, but also reinforcing new vocabulary. And for those who want a more interactive experience, there are best apps to learn English that let you practice vocabulary from podcasts with quizzes and exercises. So if you want to build a strong vocabulary naturally, start listening to podcasts, take notes, and most importantly, use the words in real-life conversations.
Now let's talk about something that every English learner struggles with: pronunciation and grammar. Many people focus only on learning new words, but if your pronunciation is unclear or your grammar is incorrect, it becomes difficult to communicate effectively. That's where podcasts can help. One of the best ways to improve pronunciation is by listening to native speakers and paying attention to how they pronounce words. Instead of just reading words from a book, you're hearing how they sound in natural speech. For example, in casual conversation, native speakers often reduce sounds, like saying gonna instead of going to or wanna instead of want to. By listening to real-life English conversations in podcasts, you start picking up these natural speech patterns automatically. This is where English pronunciation tips from podcasts become really valuable. If you struggle with certain sounds, try pausing the podcast and repeating difficult words aloud until you get them right.
That's such a great tip, Ryan. And another important thing to remember is intonation and rhythm. English isn't just about saying words correctly, it's also about how your voice rises and falls when you speak. Podcasts give you a chance to train your ears to these patterns. For example, when someone asks a question, their voice usually goes up at the end. Are you coming with us? But when making a statement, the tone stays neutral or goes down. I will meet you there. By listening to podcasts and repeating phrases exactly as they are spoken, you can speak English confidently with natural flow. Also, shadowing technique for fluency works wonders for pronunciation. You simply play a podcast, listen to a sentence, pause, and then repeat it exactly as the speaker said it. This method helps you sound more natural and reduce hesitation while speaking English.
Absolutely, Priya. And pronunciation isn't the only thing that podcasts help with. They're also an excellent tool for learning grammar naturally. A big mistake English learners make is trying to memorize complicated grammar rules instead of learning them in context. But if you listen to structured conversations in podcasts, you start recognizing correct grammar patterns without even realizing it. For example, instead of studying a grammar textbook to learn past tense, listen to a podcast where people share personal stories. You'll hear sentences like, "Yesterday I went to the market," or "Last week she visited her grandmother." This exposure to correct grammar in real conversations helps you absorb the rules effortlessly. This is what we mean by English grammar made easy. You don't have to struggle with rules if you learn them in action.
Exactly, Ryan. And podcasts also help with fixing common English mistakes. Many learners make errors with prepositions, verb tenses, or sentence structure, but they often don't realize it. However, when you listen to well-structured podcast conversations, you start recognizing your own mistakes. For example, if you often say, "I go to home" instead of "I go home," hearing it correctly multiple times in podcasts will help correct the mistake naturally. One great strategy is to write down sentences from a podcast and compare them to how you would normally say them. If there's a difference, that's a sign of a mistake you need to fix. Another trick is to listen to grammar-focused podcasts, where experts explain how to improve English fluency by avoiding common errors. So, if you want to master pronunciation and grammar effortlessly, start using podcasts as your personal English coach.
Now, let's talk about something really important: where to find the best podcasts and resources for learning English. With so many options out there, it can be confusing to know where to start. The good news is that there are English podcasts for learning designed for all levels: beginners, intermediate learners, and advanced speakers. If you're just starting out, look for podcasts that focus on simple, slow conversations so you can follow along easily. Some great options include the British Council Podcasts, or ESL Pod, where conversations are spoken clearly and slowly. For intermediate learners, podcasts like The English We Speak from BBC or Speak English with Vanessa are fantastic because they teach English idioms and phrases commonly used in daily conversations. And for advanced learners who want to understand native English speakers better, the Joe Rogan Experience or TED Talks Daily are great because they expose you to natural, fast-paced speech.
That's a great list, Ryan. And apart from podcasts, there are also best apps to learn English that can help you improve faster. Apps like BBC Learning English, Duolingo, and Fluent U offer interactive lessons where you can practice English listening exercises while learning new words and phrases. If you want to focus on English pronunciation tips and English accent training, apps like Elsa Speak and Speechling can be really helpful because they use AI to analyze how well you're pronouncing words. And don't forget about free English learning resources. Websites like Grammarly Blog, English Club, and Cambridge English provide English grammar made easy guides, quizzes, and exercises to help you improve your writing and speaking skills. The key is to use these resources alongside podcasts. Listen to a podcast, take notes on new words, and then practice them using an app or website. This method makes learning English more effective and fun.
Absolutely, Priya. Another great way to learn English at home is by using YouTube channels that focus on real-life English conversations. Channels like BBC Learning English, Rachel's English, and Speak English with Tiffany offer English conversation practice alone by providing transcripts, vocabulary breakdowns, and pronunciation tips. And if you're someone who likes learning English with movies or Netflix, then watching English TV shows with subtitles is a great way to pick up new expressions and understand casual versus formal English. The more you expose yourself to natural spoken English, the faster you'll speak English confidently without hesitation.
Exactly, Ryan. So, if you're serious about learning English fast and improving your fluency, start using podcasts as a daily habit. Combine them with best apps to learn English, free English learning resources, and English listening exercises to get the most out of your practice. The more you listen, the better you'll understand native speakers, expand your vocabulary, and speak with confidence. Just remember, consistency is key. Listen to at least one podcast episode every day, repeat what you hear, and practice using new words and conversations. Keep going, and soon you'll see a huge improvement in your English skills.